Everybody loves the mountaintop. That's where the view is clear, the air is light, and you can finally breathe. But the truth is, you don't grow on the mountain, you grow in the valley. See, when you're standing high, everything feels good, but when you fall down into that low place, that's where you start learning who you really are. When life knocks you down, when the people you trusted walk away, when that job you thought would change your life slips through your hands, that's the valley. And you can't fake your way through the valley, it exposes what's real. Sometimes the valley comes out of nowhere. One day you're fine, and the next your world flips upside down. You're looking at your bills wondering how you'll make it. You're questioning how everything went wrong so fast. It's a quiet place, not because God left, but because He's teaching you to depend on Him in silence. It's the kind of season where you can't depend on people, because nobody seems to understand your struggle. You try to explain, but words don't fix the weight you feel. In that valley, you start to wrestle with doubt. You start asking questions like, God, why me? Why now? But the truth is, valleys are not punishment. They are preparation. God doesn't waste pain. He uses it to shape purpose. You can't build strength in comfort. You build it when life hurts, when you have to pray even when you don't see results, when you still show up even when your heart is tired. See, life has a way of testing your endurance. The valley tests whether you trust God only when things are good, or whether you trust Him when you have nothing but faith. Everybody can shout, hallelujah, when the bills are paid, but can you still say, thank you, Lord, when you don't know how the next bill's getting covered? That's real faith. That's what the valley reveals. Sometimes God will knock you off the mountain just to show you that your strength didn't come from the height. It came from His hand. Because when you're high up, it's easy to think you did it yourself. But when you're low, you realize it was God holding you up the whole time. That's why some of your lowest moments turned into your most powerful breakthroughs. You might feel stuck right now, but you're not buried, you're planted. There's a difference. Buried things are forgotten, planted things are expected to grow. The valley is not your grave, it's your greenhouse. This is where God waters you, strengthens you, and builds the version of you that the mountain will require. And that's why when life knocks you down, you don't stay down. You get back up, even if you have to crawl. Because the valley is temporary, but the faith you develop there will last forever. You ever notice how seeds grow? They don't grow in sunlight first. They grow underground in darkness. That's how God works. He doesn't always bless you in public. He builds you in private. You're crying, confused, asking Him to show up. But what you don't realize is He's already working, just not in a way you can see yet. Darkness doesn't mean God disappeared. It means He's preparing a reveal. We love the spotlight, but God loves the soil. That's where He does His best work. He develops your roots before He lets you rise. Because if He elevates you before you're stable, success will crush you. You ever seen a tree that grew too fast? Its roots can't handle the weight and it topples over. That's why some blessings are delayed. Not because God said no, but because He said, not yet. The dark season is where you learn obedience. It's where you learn to trust without proof. You start praying and nothing happens, yet you keep praying. You worship and nothing changes, yet you keep worshiping. That's maturity. Faith isn't proven when you get what you want. It's proven when you still believe when you don't. In those dark places, God strips you of everything fake. He pulls away false confidence, shallow relationships, empty distractions, anything that keeps you from seeing Him clearly. It hurts because you thought those things were your strength. But God's trying to show you that your true strength comes from Him alone. You might think you've lost direction, but you haven't. God didn't remove your map, He became your compass. The valley darkness teaches you to move by faith, not by sight. That's how spiritual muscles are built. That's why the quiet seasons are so critical. You can't hear His whisper when the world's too loud. Don't confuse darkness with defeat. Just because you can't see progress doesn't mean nothing's happening. The baby grows before it's born. The vision matures before it's revealed. God's best work happens before anyone claps for you, before anyone recognizes your name. So don't run from the dark. Embrace it. That's where God molds you, matures you, and proves that your destiny doesn't need daylight. It just needs divine timing. Some of you think because it hasn't happened yet, it's not going to happen. But that's not how God works. Delay doesn't mean denial. Sometimes he's holding it back because he's aligning things you don't even know about. You're praying for something that's not ready for you yet. Or maybe you're not ready for it. God's delays are often divine protection in disguise. Think about it. If he gave you what you asked for too early, it might destroy you. You might mishandle it, misunderstand it, or misuse it. God loves you too much to let a blessing become a burden. That's why he makes you wait, not because he's punishing you, but because he's preparing you. Waiting seasons aren't wasted seasons. But let's be real, waiting hurts. You look around and see other people getting their breakthroughs, their promotions, their answered prayers, and you start asking, God, what about me? But comparison is a trap. Their timeline isn't yours. You're not late, you're being developed. God's not ignoring you, he's maturing you. Every delay has a purpose. Maybe he's building your patience. Maybe he's teaching you gratitude. Maybe he's protecting you from something that looks good, but would end bad. You might think you're ready, but God sees what's around the corner, and he's saving you from unnecessary pain. In those waiting moments, you have to fight frustration, because frustration will make you move before God says move. And when you move too soon, you mess up what he was setting up. Sometimes the greatest act of faith is standing still, saying, Lord, I trust you even when nothing's moving. That's faith in raw form. You're not being punished, you're being positioned. God is connecting dots you can't see yet. When he finally releases that blessing, it'll fit perfectly into place. You'll look back and say, oh, that's why it took so long. Because what he's building in you is bigger than what you asked for. So, don't confuse God's silence with his absence, and don't mistake waiting for rejection. The blessing is not denied, it's just delayed until you can carry it. You ever felt overlooked? Like you're doing everything right, grinding hard, staying faithful, but nobody's noticing. That's not failure, that's hiding. God hides you before he highlights you. You think you're invisible, but really you're being protected. There are things attached to visibility that your spirit may not be ready for yet. So God keeps you covered until your foundation is strong. The hidden season can feel lonely. You're out there putting in work, but nobody's clapping. You're trying to stay positive, but it feels like no doors are opening. But here's the truth. If God made you visible too soon, the wrong people would attach themselves to your light. He's hiding you to keep you pure, focused, and grounded. It's like the development phase of a photograph. Before it's revealed, it has to sit in darkness to develop correctly. If exposed too soon, the image is ruined. That's how your purpose works. It needs the darkroom to develop fully. When it's time to shine, you'll be so ready that nobody can take that moment from you. Don't despise the season of being unseen. That's when your skills sharpen. That's when your faith deepens. That's when your character gets tested. Because when you finally step into the spotlight, what's been built in private will keep you steady in public. Sometimes you think people forgot you, but God didn't forget. He's building your name in rooms you haven't even entered yet. People are being prepared to meet the version of you that's being shaped right now. Don't rush the reveal. It's coming. You can't skip the hidden season and expect lasting success. Elevation without preparation always ends in collapse. So if you're hidden right now, thank God for it. He's keeping you safe from what could have destroyed your destiny. God hides his best work until the perfect moment. So if nobody sees you right now, that's a sign that you're in his hands, not the world's. Pressure is the birthplace of purpose. Every diamond you've ever seen started as coal under intense pressure. And that's exactly how God works with you. He doesn't waste pressure, he uses it to shape what's valuable inside you. You might feel crushed, but that's proof something precious is forming. The weight you're feeling isn't random. It's purpose pressing its way out of you. Pressure will make you question yourself. It'll make you say, God, why me? Why can't life just ease up for a minute? But you have to understand, if God allowed it, he intends to use it. The things that seem unbearable are often the things that unlock your strength. You can't grow strong in comfort. Strength is forged through struggle, not success. You ever notice how the gym works? You can't build muscle without resistance. If you lift nothing, you gain nothing. That's how the spiritual gym works too. Every problem, every betrayal, every disappointment, that's the weight you're lifting. And if you keep pressing, you'll get stronger with every rep. Pressure reveals what's inside you. When life squeezes you, what comes out? Fear, complaints, or faith? because the valley has a way of squeezing your spirit to see what you're truly made of. God isn't trying to break you. He's showing you that there's more in you than you realize. You can handle more than you think you can. Sometimes pressure isolates you. It removes people who can't handle the heat you're under. Don't take that as rejection. That's refinement. When God elevates you, not everyone can breathe that altitude. Some folks were only meant for your training phase, not your transformation phase. You may not like the season you're in, but one day you'll look back and say, if it wasn't for that pressure, I'd never have become who I am. Because pressure doesn't just change your situation. It changes your perspective. It teaches you that pain and purpose often live in the same house. So don't run from the pressure. Embrace it. Because what feels like breaking is really God shaping you into something stronger, wiser, and unstoppable. You ever had one of those moments where everything just falls apart? Job gone, plans shattered, people gone silent. You're standing there thinking, man, this can't be how the story ends. But what you don't realize is that sometimes what looks like a setback is really a setup for something greater. God will break your routine to birth your destiny. Every loss you faced wasn't wasted. You thought you were losing something valuable, but you were actually being repositioned. Sometimes God has to close a door because you're too loyal to leave a place He never meant you to stay. You're crying over what left, not realizing He had to move it so He could move you. The valley seasons strip away your comfort zone. You won't grow when you're comfortable. You grow when God interrupts your plans. And even though it hurts, you'll later discover that the thing that disappointed you was the thing that directed you. What you call a detour, God calls destiny. See, God doesn't waste failure. Every mistake, every rejection, every closed door, He's using it to build something inside you. You learn resilience in rejection. You learn focus in failure. You learn obedience in loss. The valley is your classroom, and every setback is just another lesson in faith. But here's the thing, when you're in it, it won't make sense. You'll think you missed it. You'll think God forgot. But if you could see what He's aligning behind the scenes, you'd stop stressing. Because what He's setting up is always bigger than what you had planned. The blessing that's coming will make sense of every tear you've cried. When you finally get to that new door, you'll realize if you hadn't gone through the valley, you wouldn't have been ready to walk through it. You needed that pain to handle that promotion. You needed that setback to see your own strength. So stop seeing loss as the end. It's not over. It's unfolding. God never subtracts without the intention to multiply. One of the hardest lessons in life is learning that you don't need all the answers. You ever find yourself trying to figure out why something happened, replaying it in your mind 100 times, and still can't make sense of it? That's because faith and understanding don't live on the same street. God never promised to explain. He promised to lead. You can waste years trying to make sense of what only God can see from above. Sometimes you got to let go of the why and trust the who. You don't have to know how it's going to work out. You just have to know who's in control. When you start walking by faith instead of logic, that's when peace replaces panic. God's plan doesn't always make sense while it's happening. You might be crying, hurting, confused, but He sees the whole picture. You're looking at one puzzle piece and calling it broken, but He's building a masterpiece. You can't judge God's work while it's still in progress. We live in a world that wants instant answers. But God doesn't operate on Google timing. He doesn't owe us explanations. He gives us revelation in the right moment. When you try to force understanding, you delay peace. But when you surrender your need to know, you invite trust to grow. You might not see the why until years later. You'll look back and realize that what felt like chaos was choreography. God was moving pieces into perfect position. That heartbreak taught you boundaries. That failure built your humility. That waiting season strengthened your faith. If you could understand everything God does, He wouldn't be God. He'd just be human. And I don't want a human-sized God. I want a mountain-moving one. The kind that can take pain and turn it into purpose, confusion and turn it into clarity. So stop trying to understand everything. Sometimes peace comes not when you get answers, but when you finally say, Lord, I trust you even when I don't understand you. There are moments when the pain hits so deep that words don't even come out anymore. You just sit there silent with tears rolling down your face, wondering if God even sees you. But I'm here to tell you, He does. God collects every tear, They are not wasted. They're liquid prayers. They speak even when you can't. Crying doesn't mean you're weak. It means you've been strong for too long. Those tears are proof that your heart still cares, that your spirit hasn't given up. You can fake a smile, you can post a quote, but tears tell the truth. And the truth is, you're still fighting. That's something heaven honors. Sometimes you got to let yourself feel the pain. Don't rush through it. Don't bottle it up. Healing requires honesty. God can't heal what you hide. When you bring your pain to Him raw, He doesn't judge it. He redeems it. Those tears water the soil of your next blessing. You might not realize it, but tears have purpose. They clean your vision. They wash away pride. They soften your heart. After every storm of tears, you come out lighter, wiser, and more aware of God's presence. Pain purifies faith. There are seasons where all you have are tears, no words, no strength, just emotion. And yet, in those moments, God's Spirit translates your cries into prayer. That's how powerful tears are. Even silence speaks in heaven. So don't ever think your tears are wasted time. Every one of them is sowing something eternal. Every one of them is a sign that you're still believing in the middle of the valley. When your breakthrough finally comes, you'll realize that those tears weren't just pain. They were preparation for the joy that's coming. When life is good, everybody's around. You've got friends calling, people cheering, everyone smiling in your face. But the moment life flips, when you hit that valley, the crowd gets quiet. And that's when you find out who's really for you. The valley is a filter. It separates the ones who love you from the ones who used you. You don't need 100 people. You need a handful who'll walk with you when it's dark. In your lowest moments, fake friends disappear. They don't mean you harm. They just don't have the capacity to walk through pain with you. God uses that to protect your peace. He'll let certain people exit your life, not because they're evil, but because they've expired. Their role in your story is complete, and holding on would only keep you stuck in the wrong chapter. It's not easy to lose people you love. It hurts when the ones you trusted turn their back. But sometimes God allows betrayal to shift your focus. You were so focused on their approval that you forgot His presence. The valley brings you back to the one who never leaves. When you stop depending on applause, you start walking in purpose. You'll notice something. In your dark seasons, the people who stay aren't loud, but they're loyal. They don't need attention, they give you support. They don't always have the right words, but they show up anyway. That's real friendship. Presence, not perfection. The valley will humble you. It'll make you realize that you don't need as many people as you thought you did. You just need the right ones. The ones who pray for you behind closed doors, who remind you of who you are when you forget. The valley introduces you to your tribe, your circle of strength. And when you come out, don't hold grudges against those who left. Forgive them. They couldn't handle the weight you were carrying. Not everyone is built for that level of loyalty. Let them go with peace. God replaces subtraction with addition. Every person that exits makes room for divine connection. So if the valley took people from you, don't see it as loss, see it as protection. God removed those who couldn't climb the next mountain with you, so He could surround you with people who'll push you higher when you get there. There will come a time when prayer feels pointless. You'll talk to God, and it'll feel like your words are bouncing off the ceiling. You'll ask for help, and all you'll get is silence. And that's when most people stop praying. But listen, silence doesn't mean God isn't listening. Sometimes He's just teaching you to trust His presence more than His performance. Prayer isn't about instant results, it's about intimate relationship. You can't treat God like a vending machine. Press a button, expect a blessing. Prayer is conversation. It's what builds connection. Even when He's quiet, He's close. You may not feel Him, but He's there. That's why you got to keep talking anyway. When you stop praying, you cut off your lifeline. You disconnect from the only one who truly understands what you're carrying. Sometimes all you can say is, Lord, I don't even know what to pray right now. And that's enough. Because He reads hearts, not vocabulary. In the valley, prayer isn't always pretty. It's messy. It's tears, frustration, questions. But that's where the real conversations happen. You don't have to impress God. You just have to invite Him. He'd rather hear an honest, I'm struggling, than a fake, I'm fine. There are days when you'll pray the same thing over and over, and nothing seems to change. But what's really happening is God's changing you. Every time you pray, your focus shifts. your fear starts to shrink and your faith starts to stretch. The more you talk to Him, the less control fear has over you. You won't always see answers immediately, but you'll always feel alignment. Prayer puts you back in rhythm with His plan. It reminds you that even when everything feels out of order, God's still in charge. That peace you feel after you pray, that's not coincidence, that's confirmation. So, when life goes silent, keep talking anyway. Because prayer may not change your situation overnight, but it will always change you from the inside out. It's easy to start identifying yourself by what you've been through. You get so used to your struggle that you start calling it your name. I'm broke. I'm depressed. I'm divorced. I'm damaged. No, you're not. Those are experiences, not your identity. You're not what happened to you. You're what survived it. The valley was part of your journey, not your definition. The problem is, pain can be persuasive. It'll whisper, this is who you are now, and if you're not careful, you'll start living down to the label. But God doesn't define you by your lowest moment. He defines you by His highest grace. You're still His child, even with the scars. You're still chosen, even when you've fallen short. Every valley you've walked through is purpose, but none of them get to tell you who you are. You might have failed, but that doesn't make you a failure. You might have been rejected, but that doesn't mean you're unworthy. God uses the valley to shape your identity, not destroy it. You can't step into destiny while wearing the costume of defeat. At some point, you have to reclaim your name. You have to look in the mirror and say, I am not what I went through. You might still be healing, still rebuilding, still finding your way, and that's okay. Progress is still progress. Even crawling forward is movement. The valley teaches you humility, but it also gives you authority. Once you've been through something and survived it, you carry a strength that no one can fake. You can look at someone else in pain and say, I've been there. And if God brought me through, He can bring you through too. That's power. That's purpose born from pain. You don't have to pretend your valley didn't happen. Own it, but don't let it own you. God uses everything, even the broken pieces, to build something beautiful. Those cracks in your heart, that's where His light shines through. So don't let the valley define your worth. Let it refine your wisdom. Because you're not the same person who walked in. You're stronger, wiser, and far more dangerous to the devil than you've ever been. Nobody wants pain, but everybody wants purpose. The problem is, you can't have one without the other. Pain is the midwife of purpose. Every great thing God ever did in your life came after something that hurt. That heartbreak, that failure, that disappointment, it all became the birthplace of who you were meant to be. Pain makes you dig deeper. When life's good, you don't ask deep questions. But when you're broken, you start seeking God in a different way. You cry differently. You listen differently. Pain pulls you into places of prayer that peace never could. That's why God allows it not to crush you, but to connect you. When you're in pain, you start realizing what really matters. The things you thought you couldn't live without, suddenly they don't seem so important. Pain strips away the unnecessary so you can focus on the eternal. It gives you clarity that comfort could never give you. You ever notice how people who've been through something deep have a different glow about them? That's because they've seen God's faithfulness up close. They don't just believe, they know. They've cried prayers in the dark and lived to see light again. That's not theory. That's testimony. Pain also gives you compassion. You start seeing people differently. You stop judging and start understanding. Because once you've bled, you recognize the wounds in others. That's why God trusts the broken. They know how to love with empathy. You might be in the middle of your own painful season right now, wondering why it has to hurt this much. But pain isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of something sacred. Every contraction in your soul is a sign that something new is about to be born. You're not dying, you're delivering. So don't curse your pain. Embrace it. Because on the other side of that valley, you'll look back and realize that pain was the door to your purpose. Anybody can praise when everything's working. When the bills are paid, the doors are open, and life feels light. Praise is easy. But real power, real faith, that shows up when you can praise in the dark. When you've got no answers, no signs, no idea how it's going to work. And you still say, Lord, you're good. That's the kind of praise that moves heaven. That's valley praise. See, the enemy expects you to quit when things fall apart. He expects you to give up, to fold under pressure. But when you open your mouth and start giving God glory in the middle of your pain, it confuses everything in hell. Because praise doesn't just celebrate what God has done, it anticipates what he's about to do. Praising while you wait is not pretending you're okay. It's declaring, even though I don't see it, I still believe it. It's not denial, it's defiance. You're telling your situation, you won't steal my song. When you praise in the valley, you turn your pain into a weapon. It's the sound of faith saying, I trust God even here. Sometimes, praise is all you've got left. You've prayed all your prayers, cried all your tears, fought all your battles, and the only thing left to do is lift your hands and say, Lord, I thank you anyway. That anyway, praise is what shifts the atmosphere. It invites God right into your struggle. There's something about praising through pain that breaks chains you can't see. It doesn't always change your situation right away, but it changes you in the situation. It replaces fear with focus, worry with worship, doubt with divine strength. Praise doesn't just lift God, it lifts you. When you start to praise in the valley, heaven starts to move. God inhabits the praises of his people, not their perfection, not their performance, but their praise. That's his address. When you worship, he shows up. And where God shows up, no valley can last forever. So don't wait for the breakthrough to celebrate. Praise him right now, right where you are, because if you can shout in the storm, you'll dance on the other side. You can struggle for years, wondering if things will ever turn around, and then in one moment, everything shifts. That's how God works. He doesn't need time, he needs timing. You might have been praying, fasting, holding on for so long, and it feels like nothing's changing. But all it takes is one divine moment, one phone call, one meeting, one open door, and your whole life can turn. We serve a God who specializes in suddenly. Suddenly, there was a breakthrough. Suddenly, there was peace. Suddenly, what you thought was dead came back to life. That's how fast God can flip it. You could go to bed in pain and wake up in purpose. That's why you can't give up in the valley, because your miracle might be scheduled for tomorrow morning. The valley teaches you endurance because the blessing requires patience. If God flipped it too early, you'd think it was luck. But when he does it after the wait, you'll know it was him. The valley creates appreciation for the mountaintop. You don't take favor for granted when you've felt what struggle feels like. And when that turnaround comes, it'll make up for everything you lost. God is a restorer, not just a replacer. He doesn't give you back what you had. He gives you better. You'll look back at the valley and realize it wasn't wasted time, it was set up time. When he flips it, people who doubted you will have to watch the same God who covered you promote you. The same pain that tried to bury, you will become the platform that blesses you. That's the kind of turnaround only God can do. You don't have to chase it, beg for it, or force it. When the time is right, God will make it happen. What's meant for you can't miss you. Not when his hand is on it. So if it still looks dark, hold on. You might be one moment away from the miracle that's going to make every valley make sense. When God brings you out of your valley, don't forget the people still walking through theirs. You didn't survive just to sit in silence. You made it so you could lift somebody else. That's what purpose looks like. Turning your pain into power that helps others find hope. Your scars aren't ugly, they're maps for somebody else's survival. You know how powerful it is to hear someone say, I've been there. That's what your testimony does. Somebody out there needs to know that you cried too, you struggled too, you doubted too, but God brought you through. When you share your story, you give others permission to believe again. See, the valley teaches you empathy. You start seeing broken people differently because you remember being broken yourself. You stop judging and start loving. You stop talking down and start reaching down. That's ministry. You don't need a title, you just need a testimony. Helping others doesn't mean you've got it all together. It just means you've seen too much of God's grace to stay quiet about it. You become a walking example of his mercy. And when you help others rise, God lifts you even higher. That's how kingdom math works. Giving multiplies. You never know how your story might save someone's life. One small word, one act of kindness, one I understand, can keep someone from giving up. That's why God let you walk through what you walked through, not just to heal you, but to use you. Your survival carries assignment. The world doesn't need more perfect people. It needs more healed ones who aren't afraid to admit what they've been through. That's how revival happens. Through realness, through stories, through scars that shine with grace. So when you come out of the valley, don't close the door behind you. Reach back, grab somebody's hand, and pull them out too, because the same God who brought you out wants to bring them out through you. If you're still breathing, it's not over. The valley might have broken your plans, but it didn't break your purpose. The valley is not where your story ends. It's where your strength begins. It's the proving ground of your faith, the workshop of your destiny. You're not dying here, you're developing here. Sometimes it feels like you'll never get out. You wake up tired, go to bed weary, wondering how much longer it'll last. But God didn't bring you this far to leave you halfway. Every step you've taken, every tear you've cried, every prayer you've whispered, it's all part of the process. You're walking through it, not stuck in it. You see, the valley teaches you something the mountaintop never could: how to depend on God completely. On the mountain, you celebrate, but in the valley, you learn. You learn endurance, humility, and trust. The valley breaks pride but builds perspective. It humbles you so that when you rise again, you rise grateful. You might not realize it now, but you're being shaped for something greater. God is strengthening your foundation, because what's coming next requires stability. You couldn't carry that level of blessing without the level of testing you're enduring right now. When you finally come out, and you'll see that the valley was necessary. It wasn't a detour, it was destiny. It's where your roots went deep so your fruit could grow wide. Every low moment was building the character needed for your next elevation. You'll look back one day and say, if it hadn't been for the valley, I wouldn't have known his power. You'll thank God for the nights that forced you to pray, for the losses that made you seek his face, for the silence that taught you how to hear his whisper. The valley is not the end. It's the middle chapter of a masterpiece God is still writing. And when the next page turns, everything you've been through will finally make sense.